Okay, so tell me about this secretive side project that I think we might have an exclusive here tonight, friends. First, thanks so much for being here.
Of course,
I appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So yeah, side project. It's called Final Day. That's the alias I'm going under.
Okay.
The DJ Afterthought stuff is all strictly production and DJ stuff for EDM, hip hop, that side of things.
Okay.
Final Day is a really cool indie alternative kind of mashup of all of the things musically that influenced me my whole life.
Okay.
I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of stuff for other people, especially in other genres, and kind of, I don't want to say doing things that weren't me, but kind of adjusting to where I was at career-wise and the people that I was working with and the opportunities I had at the time. So I kind of always was a little bit opportunistic with it because I wanted to always take advantage of the opportunities that I was given, because I realized that you don't always get those opportunities.
True.
So, I grew up listening to alternative, like I was saying. I grew up in New Jersey outside of New York City, so we had like K-Rock, we had Z100, we had Hot 97. My parents listened to classic rock and like harder rock. Grandparents listened to like old oldies, blues, Frank Sinatra, stuff like that. So I just kind of I didn't really have, there was no filter. Like I just got to listen to everything. So I was a really big like Green Day fan, and I was a really big Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, and I was a really big Grateful Dead fan and Tom Petty fan, but then I also liked Biggie and stuff like that. So I kind of had a lot of musical influence, and I've never got to express that the way that I've wanted to. It's always kind of been genre based and opportunity based, and for one time in my life, I decided to kind of slow it down and take a look at myself and dive into music that I wanted to make and that I wanted to do. And I've never been happier. It's just been...
Really?
It's been great, man. Like, the music has been coming out super natural, super easy. It feels right. So it's been really cool.
What, how do I say this? Give me an idea, I guess... It's fascinating to me when producers like yourself can, I guess, mashups the most common term. I think that's more of a YouTube kind of comedy stuff. Because I see a lot of, they take, what's that one DJ that does that? DJ Cumberbund. Have you seen him? That's some funny stuff. I wouldn't take that serious, but it's very funny.
Right.
But I think genres have hurt music. Yeah. The course of my 53 years, I think it's great that genres are kind of being blended and fading away. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm guessing.
I just think music is an expression, and I feel like when you put a genre on it, it's like, yeah, you want to be in a mood, and you have to classify things as different things to differentiate in general. Right. But music is not something that should be boxed. Like, it should be something that comes from you, and it should be something that you pull from, that's in you. And I think when you have to toe the line with genres, I think it makes you make different stuff than you might necessarily, like you might not necessarily make something because you feel like you have to be in that genre. And I just don't really, I don't know. I'm like older now, and I've always gone off of, I need to do this so I can kind of stay relevant, or I need to do this to kind of fit into this opportunity, or I need to present myself this way. Not fake, not by any means like faking it, because I still have those, I love hip hop, I love EDM, I love it all, but I also like other stuff, and I don't allow myself to enjoy it or allow myself to do it as much as I want to because I'm doing all this other stuff. So I think the blending of the genres and things like that is awesome, because it's just it's making people more comfortable. It's like, you don't have to be this person, or you don't have to be in this category of this or whatever. Just like, be a human being, enjoy music, take what you want from it, and grow from it, learn from it, cope with it, like however you want to use it that way. And who cares what a genre is? It's like,
and I think it's tremendous, but I think it's funny that society's still trying to figure out this. I think society has to acclimate themselves to where we're headed. Because I think we're still somewhat kind of pigeonholed.
I think that it's just, I mean, I hate to say this, but
It's all right.
I think that a lot of the older generation as well as
Watch it. No, but you're spot on.
I mean, it's just kind of like, it's just one of those things, you know, times were a lot different and there was a lot of segregation of things, a lot of opinions and a lot of outlooks on certain things over the course of history and music. I mean, look at rock and roll, for example. It's widely accepted now, but when it first started coming out, it was looked at as, you know, kind of like looked down upon. So, I mean, and even hip hop, same way. Of course, it was looked down upon. People didn't like it. I mean, people still don't like it, but it's the #1 genre in the world right now. So, like, I just think a lot of that has to do with people kind of stuck in their ways and people used to having to defend what they listen to or be a part of a group or
it was an identity, I think.
Yeah,
especially when you grow up sometimes and when you're younger, it's an identity thing. Not so much with your generation probably, but with mine.
Even with ours, like I'm 32, so like when I was growing up, I grew up in the 90s, so like, hey man, I listened to Biggie and I listened to rap and I wore the Averex and the FUBU stuff, but I also wore Jenkos and skated and listened to punk and, you know, went to punk shows and did stuff like that. So I think that we were just exposed to a lot more and it was just so much more widely accepted. And plus it was kind of like, you know, like outlawish, like you kind of like felt like you know you're going against everything and you know you're like power to you for listening to this and it's looked down upon or whatever. And I don't know, I think that's what it comes down to, is just open-mindedness of generations that didn't really get the opportunity to even enjoy it because they felt like, you know, they were either criticized or they just couldn't. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't be from like a wholesome white family whose parents listen to Christian rock and you come home and they accept rap or they accept pop or whatever it may be. And I think that as that kind of goes out, it allows more self-thought and more acceptance and being able to do it. You know, nobody's going to like look down upon you. Or, you know, so
I'll share this with you. So I'm about 20 years older than you. So it's a whole generation and a little more than that.
Yeah.
We grew up where we were dictated to. The record companies, they owned the show. They were we were kind of like cattle going to the trough.
Right.
If you had an affinity for rock and roll, you were listening to rock and roll. If you had an affinity for heavy metal, it was heavy metal. It was literally in lanes or in boxes.
Right.
Very little crossover.
Well,
little.
And also those boxes and those lanes did it to themselves as well. You know, if you listen to disco, you're like the rock people were.
Oh, I remember.
You know, fuck you. You know, like
or even when punk came out, I was one of the rock and rollers of the 70s in my little sphere that dug the punk thing to a degree. Yeah. You know, it was an aggressive form of rock and roll to me. Right. It was sloppy and in your face, but again, a lot of rock and rollers and classic rockers thought that was debris. But they also thought disco was debris,
right? Until
some of the rock and rollers started playing disco to remain relevant. I mean, it's amazing. It is. But we were pretty much spoon fed,
right? And
even
you didn't have
the radio stations were centric and genre based.
Payola. I mean, you had.
We know what happened, right?
Yeah, you guys. That's exactly what it was. Boxed, packaged, and given to you. You weren't able to. It's really hard, especially in your generation, to go find new music. Like, you're not going to find new music. You're going to find music that's given to you, and that's
MTV.
MTV, the radio, you know, record stores. But even the record stores, record stores were printing and pushing label. You know what I mean? The labels are paying you to put cutouts and put all that crap in the record store.
Ryan, I'd walk in the record store when I was a kid, and there was a rock and roll section. There was a R&B section. There wasn't hip hop then,
of course.
And there was a heavy metal section. It was considerably smaller, and of course, there's always the bleed overs. What was rock and what was heavy metal, and you know, then what was R&B and what was pop,
right?
Or they didn't call it pop then. Maybe they did call it pop. I don't know. But even the record stores were segmented,
right?
So, yeah.
And I mean, just like I went to punk shows and stuff when I was younger as well. I would go to New York City's right there, so I was spoiled. So like I lived in northern Jersey. We had enough of our own stuff.
Right.
I mean, you can go to any firehouse on a Saturday night fire hall and go see a punk show, and like, or you go to the city and go see anything you wanted. But
that's very cool.
You couldn't be. I had a lot of friends that like wore the leather jackets with the studs all over
safety
them
pins.
and safety pins and mohawks and stuff. God forbid they'd go to a hip hop show, they'd get bashed. You know what I mean? Like,
does that still exist today? I don't think that's that way it is anymore, is it?
It does, but it doesn't, and it's really funny. Like even like the EDM community and the hip hop community. There was just a festival called Breakaway Festival. It's in Columbus and Grand Rapids, and there's videos. There's a little controversy about it, but I guess like there's videos of a bunch of EDM fans like standing there, and they kind of like put their fingers in their ears, and they're making disgusted faces at the people listening to hip hop and stuff. And it's like, you guys are on the rail headbanging, you know what I mean? Like going crazy to some crazy dubstep, but like you're that has hip hop influence, and it's just like, so it still happens for sure, but I think that it doesn't happen as hard line as it did. Like, it's not, I don't think, I mean, it definitely happens, so I'm not gonna put my foot in my mouth, but
sure.
I just think it's not as big a deal. Like, I see like dads, with their windows down, listening to the most random stuff, and I'm like, really?
Yeah, true.
They're like, what do my kids listen to?
But I will tell you though, and I grew up right in this area, and it's the same town we're in, believe it or not, and I can remember being young, and we were rock and rollers, Van Halen and Led Zeppelin and Kiss and all that stuff. But I had Rick James, he's little Rick James over there. I had Rick. When Prince came out, I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. So I think a lot of us were open to different things.
Yeah.
So I had appreciation.
But the people before you,
yes,
probably weren't so much.
Yeah.
So that's where you
early '70s, mid '70s, maybe 5 years older than me. They were pigeonholed into what they. But again, they were spoon fed, and I believe that.
And even if it's not something that you consciously know that you're doing, you kind of bestow upon your values and thoughts on your kids too.
Absolutely
so
right.
It kind of happens,
right
from there. I grew up, and my grandparents were super Catholic, super Catholic. So like, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and they weren't having any of that, like at all.
Whether it was rock and roll, rap, or R&B.
They damn near didn't, like my one set of grandparents, my dad's grandparents, they damn near didn't listen to music at all. I don't even know what kind of music they liked, because I didn't even listen to hear. They would listen to like NPR, like 1010 Wins or something like. Got it. I don't even know what they listened to. So like, that was interesting, but they're Zergan kids, so they accepted it, I guess, somewhat.
Sure.
But
sure. Yeah, absolutely right. So when you take on a client or a collaboration, because you've had some amazing ones in this town, you certainly made a name for yourself. It was Mac and things you've done with Wiz. My question is, when you work with an artist and they have their vision, you are kind of pigeonholed, because you're there somewhat to complement what they want to do. How much do you reach out and suggest different directions? Because I always wondered about what the role is for a producer today, because when I look back historically in rock and roll, there's a lot of great stories of bands like Rush where the producer was such a strong influence on those three guys. He was almost like the fourth member of the band, because he's helped them craft areas outside of what they originally wanted to do. Is it still that way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just like kind of like a vibe. You just go into things like, it just happens a lot of different ways. Like, a lot of people know too, like the side project we were talking about, Final Day. I do all of the, I have a little bit of help on the production with this guy named Callie at Audi Labs. So we're kind of doing it together, but the production, the writing, and the performance of the vocals are all me. So I do vocals, I play instruments, I produce, I DJ, I do a lot of stuff. So I've been in a lot of positions where there's, I've been able to give input because I do a lot of different things and not just produce. So, it's just kind of a feel. There's sometimes you start stuff from scratch, and you're all there as creatives and you create just from scratch. Or a lot of the other times it's you kind of have works in progress and you kind of push that to them, and if they don't like it, obviously they probably won't do it, but if they do, they'll just kind of go along with the vibe and fit the song, right? So It's kind of a toss-up, just depending on how you go about it and how the situation works. Like, you can't always be in the studio with somebody, but if you are, things work out even better. So
certainly, because you can actually show the vibe, and it's got to be easier. I would imagine it would have to be easier to be there with them as opposed to just trading tracks. Am I right?
100%. I mean, yeah.
It depends on the artist,
It
right?
depends on the artist, 100%. I think that, I mean, it definitely depends on the artist. I think that a lot of the times creatively, it definitely helps because you kind of feed off each other, and there's ideas that you can try, and you're not trying to just get it done. You're trying to make something cool, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not trying to do something cool when you're not. Yeah. But I don't know. It's like, if you're on the phone with somebody and you're having a conversation, it's not the same as sitting down with somebody and having a conversation. Does that make sense? Like,
that's just life in general, I think.
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's just a different feeling. So,
and that's a creative difference today from, for me growing up before the interwebs, and just being able to share files. Collaboration. Back then, artists would send tapes, whether it was in the 70s reel to reel, then there was cassette, and then there was probably still reel to reel, or DAT tapes. Yeah. Remember DAT, digital audio transfer tapes? Yep. But it's still kind of a long distance collaboration, but not as immediate, right? I mean, you can practically record together almost in different locations, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have in real time. I mean, there's applications even that you can use to basically link feeds live through Pro Tools and do like screen sharing and stuff like that, and literally just be tracking through, be wherever. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely way different, and it's kind of cool because, like I said, I'm 32, so I was old enough to cognitively remember the change. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when it went from Atari and floppy disks playing Oregon Trail.
That's cool.
To everything else. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
So I got to see all that. Mm-hmm. And, those were big steps comparable to the last 30 years before that. There was a lot of steps, but they weren't as big.
They weren't monumental.
I mean, there were in their own rights, but it wasn't such. I mean, the internet age and all that stuff, and as electronics and digital
it's come
era
rapidly since.
I mean, it was just so different. It was so different.
So I think I understand what you're saying. Me growing up, there was reel to reel and 8 tracks when I was very little. Then albums were the big thing, naturally.
Right.
Which I find it ironic that they're somewhat coming back.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a second. 'Cause I have a question for you about that.
Sure.
And then cassettes were a thing, but the quality was always pretty bad. The audio quality, just as a consumer listening to it, like, ooh.
Like pop. Yeah.
And then the first generation of CDs were horrific because the compression technology was just so. There was warble. Remember that term, warble?
Yeah,
and then there was a lot of tinny, like, I guess the oversampling rate was bad, or they'd have it figured out.
The refresh rates were terrible, and then the sample rates were terrible, and then they. I mean, they scratch real easy. Remember the first Walkmans and stuff without the what did they call that? Shock protection.
Correct.
And it was just so it didn't skip.
Yeah, you almost had to carry it in your hand as you were jogging,
had to carry it like basically, and God forbid you were in a car or something.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I remember that directly. But it seemed like from 95, 96 on, once the web really hit, the technology proliferated. Of course, downloading came and ruined it for everybody.
Yeah, man. I was a Napster LimeWire too, but
yeah. Well, no, you were in the perfect age for it, but
we didn't know what we didn't know what we were doing.
I have
we
so
could
much
download music. What?
And it's free.
Like, okay.
I remember this was terrible, but a buddy of mine had. I bought a guitar. I was in the guitar business years ago, as you probably guessed. But I had sold a guitar to a friend, and he was in a different city. And I'll never forget this. He sent me the entire Kiss catalog, like album 1 through, at that time, probably album 26, all on a disc. And I'm like, what is this? He goes, put it in your computer, man. It's a data disc. It's all there. I already had them all.
Yeah.
I'm saying to myself, wait a second. This is everything? And it's in perfect quality. And I was like, wow, this is going to be seismic. If this is really what's happening, this is, and sure enough, it just changed. The question I had for you, though, was albums are a thing, right? Are you paying attention to that at all? Okay, so my question to you is, the thing for me about albums, Ryan, was they were recorded analog in the years I grew up, and there was an awesomeness to that.
Yeah.
A real analog recording from the original master is like amazing.
Yep.
But the people that are enjoying the new vinyl, right, these reissues, are they getting an analog recording,
No.
or are they just basically having
No.
a digital recording laid on? So it's not the same then.
You're getting that vinyl overlap of like the sound bleed. So you're getting that like,
Yeah,
you know
but
what I
that's
mean? But
not,
like,
that's not the original tape hiss, right?
yes and no, compressed down, because
Okay.
you're using digital files to make to make records, right?
Okay.
So like, you're not using
I get it.
the original tapes that you had to splice and cut and tape together and do all that shit too. You're not using those. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You're using a digital,
Yeah, and it's funny.
a digital remaster of that. So
It's funny. I could. There was a jazz record that I had as a kid, a jazz fusion record. The name of the band was Return to Forever. They were a big fusion band in the '70s. My buddy was so happy because they released one of his. They released this. It was called Romantic Warrior, I think. And he's listening to it. He's like, it just doesn't sound the same.
yeah.
And I'm like, well, explain it to me. And he goes, well, it's cleaner, but it's a little shrill. I'm like, come on, you can't tell that. He goes, it just doesn't sound the same. It's not warm.
Yeah, it's not warm. Yeah. I
He could actually tell that.
Yeah, I went to audio engineering school.
I
So
know you. That's why I asked you.
I got to really, I just got so many examples and got to listen to so many different
Sure.
things that they just
Sure.
beat us into
I bet.
the head with that.
I bet.
I can tell. But it's just it's warmth. It's like, it's a hard thing to describe besides that, but it's just like it's full. It's it's just organic. You know what I mean? And you can still capture that, but it's just high quality. You know what I mean? It's just,
Is it too expensive for modern artists to really want to even go back to that? It's a novelty. It's a novelty to do it again.
yeah, I mean, getting a tape roll on an analog machine and running it,
One that works
You look
out
at
there, right?
SSL and Neves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You go to 90% of, I'd say 95% of studios, even around the world.
Right.
You walk in, you can have a beautiful old school SSL sitting there.
Really?
And there's a Pro Tools rigged hooked right up to it. So,
It's the blend,
I
right?
mean, it's like you're running through those channels, but you're
Yeah,
ultimately
yeah.
recording digitally, and nobody wants to go back to cutting tape. And
Understand.
doing all that.
Understand.
I don't know if anybody.
It's like photography. No one goes back and shoots film anymore. Everything's digital. Once they made a
Or
change
if
to
you
digital,
do, it's specifically because you want that, right? You want that.
or you love the novelty. It brings back memories of you doing it as a child. You romanticize.
It's also trendy. Everybody wants
is,
the
yes.
everybody wants the old school.
I guess. But you've actually embraced technology naturally for what you do.
I mean, yeah, and like I said, I was too young to really. I mean, I know the difference, and I've gotten to work on things, but everything started to just kind of come together, especially when I started getting into the recording and that side of it. Everything was changing so much at that point anyway that
Constantly, probably.
I was never around for. I was never got to be in a studio doing a session on tape or anything. That wasn't in school. That because we were learning about it. You know what I mean? So
got it.
just
So on this new project, are you going to release? And I don't even know if that's even a thing anymore. Do you release albums? Album meaning like, is there an 11-track recording, or do you release just single tracks? How's that work?
So with this project, it just depends. So like I'm doing a bunch of EDM stuff as well. I signed to an agency called Warpath Group, and they do a lot of EDM booking. They're super heavy on that side, but they do a lot of other things as well. Super great guys. They kind of help me with the management of my EDM stuff too, because I don't really necessarily have like an EDM management person.
Okay.
And with them, the EDM stuff, it's a lot of niche stuff. So it's like you kind of you shop singles. So you collab with somebody, or you work with somebody, or you're putting out your stuff, and like you shop them to different labels as singles. And if the singles do well, then you follow up with like an EP or something like that. With this, I'm trying to put together a 7 to 10 song album. I'm already 6 songs into it.
Good for you.
So I'm trying to do a whole project, and then I would really like to, I've already started to and gotten some really great feedback, but I'm starting to shop the project to different labels, publishing,
Right.
just stuff like that. So I'm trying to get everything completely really done before I kind of decide exactly what route we're going to go with that. But it's probably going to just be a whole project because I just want to
All right.
get
And
it
you're
out.
stretching out, which has got to feel good, right?
Yeah, I'm just happy, man. I'm just like, I've just always boxed myself in by just helping so many other people and just doing so many different things that I'm not saying I didn't enjoy or I take for granted. It's just, I just wanted to do something for myself.
Sure.
And I felt like I deserved it. And furthermore, like I had to. Like, it was just kind of, you know, I don't like bringing up depression and stuff like that because it's kind of like a trendy topic nowadays too. But, you know, music's something that I really, really, really use as an outlet and a release. And when I'm watering that down personally for myself, it just kind of makes me not as good a person that I can be as a whole.
Probably not happy, right?
Yeah, it's been bothering me.
Got it.
Just wanted to let it out. So.
Let's circle around now. This is what we do here. So let's take us all the way back because I have some questions. I really get the fact of the influence of multiple genres. I hate that word of music. But you grew up in New Jersey, correct?
Right.
As a child, when did you get the music bug? Do you remember? Can you give me an age?
Probably 3 or 4. My parents were really, really, really big into music, and they were like deadheads and just really into, and they embraced, like my dad. I grew up with like, my parents were separated for a long time, as long as I can remember. I was really little. But I was with my dad a lot more than my mom when I was younger. But my dad like just loved music in general. And so he wasn't that old, you know, that old angry man who is just kind of stuck in his ways. He kind of embraced it. So like as things were changing and alternatives started and stuff like that, he kind of, you know, he didn't block it out and you know, he was open-minded more or less. So as things were coming out and it was newer grunge and stuff like that, like, you know, he would listen to K-rock and stuff with me, and I enjoyed that too.
What shows did you see back then? Any?
I went
Any
to
alternative shows that you dug?
So many random things. My dad took me to see Green Day when I was little. That was like definitely a big thing for me. I don't even remember. He just take me to random stuff, honestly.
The Warped Tour was a big thing starting back. Did you go to any of those at all?
I went to the Warped Tour. I went to Surf and Skate in Asbury Park. I went to,
Familiar with that?
you know, all kind of different things, really. But yeah, I mean, I know I remember my first CDs were Green Day, Dookie, No Doubt, Presidents of the United States of America, Biggie, Busta Rhymes. I had a Lord Tyreek and Peter Gunn CD.
Wow.
I had, those were like my first
Busta
group
Rhymes.
of CDs.
All the song I remember from Busta Rhymes was that funny one when he was at a piano and, you know what I feel. When you say he's just a friend.
Oh no, that's
that's Biz Markie. I'm sorry.
Say he's just a friend.
I'm old. Sorry. I get an A for effort, right? The old guy gets an A for effort. That was funny though.
I don't know, man. I just loved everything. Like I used to listen to crazy stuff.
That's good though.
Like,
that's healthy.
There's bands called like Leftover Crack. They're like a super insane punk band that lived in C Squat in the city. Like I would go to some pretty
sounds like a modern day Sex Pistols or something, right?
They were like a modern day Sex Pistols, and I mean I'd sneak into CBGBs.
Nice.
Good
for you.
I did it all.
That's an experience you can remember, right? Before they shut down.
I did it all. I was the little kid who was on his bike everywhere, and just like my parents definitely cared, but like I was just I was at Steve's house all the time or whatever.
Got it.
Meanwhile, we're on the train out into the city. So like,
good for you. Good for you. So was when you wanted to start making music in any capacity? Can you give me an age?
5 or so. Oh, well, even earlier, probably like 4. My grandma was really, she's, rest in peace to my grandma. She died when I was like 16, but she was, my dad more or less raised me, and then his mom and dad lived in Allendale, which is like two towns away. And actually, my other set of grandparents on my mom's side actually lived in Allendale too. So I saw I was with my dad's parents a lot, like every day.
Okay.
Because he would work really early and then like work till later in the evening. So he would drop me off every morning, or my grandma would come pick me up. And I would go there before school, or I would go there before I started school. I would go there and I would be there all day and do stuff with her, go to camp, do all that stuff. And then my dad would just come pick me up on the way back from work. She's the one who really got me into music, I guess, per se, because she would want to. I was like a bad kid. I was super ADHD, just like off the wall kid. So she would just keep me busy. And I mean, I had clarinet, or not clarinet. I started obviously with like the recorder and stuff, but like I was like serious, like serious, like recorder, like serious, like lessons. Okay, so not like a kazoo, and she had me take piano lessons, and I played trumpet, she gave me guitar. So around 4 years old is when I started getting it, because she was so involved with the church. So it was all kind of church camps and stuff related to that. And
I'm sure you love that, right?
I mean, yeah, it wasn't always like the ideologies. I still respect
that age too. Sure, oh sure.
Yeah, but sure. I mean, it's northern New Jersey, man. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on, so like it was cool. Like I went to camps and preschool and schools and stuff, and they just slid a little God in there.
That's all right.
Had a little fun, did some art, sports, little God. We're cool.
Now, when you thought about making music, you said it was clarinet, did you say? Or?
Recorder. I started recorder, piano was the first instruments I played. I took lessons.
Okay.
Which I kick myself every day for not keeping up with. The piano, at least. I can play now, but it would have been so much better if I just would have stuck with it. And then I graduated I played trumpet, played in the band.
A little bit of brass in there. Okay.
First grade to like 6th grade.
Okay.
Played a little guitar in that time period.
Fretted instruments. You're getting a rounded curriculum there.
I loved to play the drums, even though I did not know how to play them.
I think most percussionists in the beginning and for a long time really don't know what they're doing. Even the great ones, they're not really sure exactly what they were doing.
Beat on these things and make it sound good.
But all that must have certainly been a benefit to you, from a production standpoint later in life, because you have a feel for all of those elements, right?
Yeah, and I got to see a lot of practicality usage of things of different genres. So I just thought it was interesting when, I just love music. I love going to see live bands, and I love seeing weird ass instruments because it's interesting to me. It's like someone took 10,000 hours to learn how to play this weird ass instrument.
There's a lot of weird guitars out there, like 15 strings and
just such cool shit that
right.
It's just people expressing themselves through these things. You know what I mean? And it makes you feel something. And that to me is like the coolest thing.
Sure.
So I don't know, man. I love it. I just love seeing live expression and I don't know.
Well, did you start or join a band at all at any point in time when you were young?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, if you want to call it that,
that's all right.
Yeah, we tried.
Okay,
we tried. Nothing serious.
Yeah, what kind of music?
Whatever we could make. I mean, we did a lot of acoustic stuff. We did some punk stuff. We did.
What was the name of the band?
I don't know.
Yes, you do.
There was definitely nothing that I even remember.
Okay.
There was nothing that solid that I remember a name of the band. It was just friends just doing random shit. We probably had 50 names for bands that we came up with, but
no live gigs though.
No. I was more of.
And you were playing what instruments?
Guitar more or less than anything, and then like trumpet, I played in like the school band and stuff. But
Okay.
that was a lot of the structured stuff that I did was in school.
Sure.
Oh.
All right, so you graduated high school what year?
I graduated in 2004,
Mm-hmm.
but I was supposed to graduate in 2005 was my graduating class. I graduated in 2004. I played hockey. That's the other part. I played hockey my whole life.
Okay.
And I played pretty competitively, and I ended up...
Was that an avenue that you were thinking about seriously at some point?
Oh, yeah, definitely. 100%.
Okay.
I played juniors. I played junior nationals. I played for the junior national team. Played like Mighty Ducks, Team USA and Mighty Ducks. I played for that actual team. I played high school, played traveling, I played juniors, just played everything: ice hockey, roller hockey, deck hockey, everything. And I ended up getting into a little bit of trouble, just like not actual trouble, just
stuff.
Just stuff. And my grandma was actually the head of like parole and child support and probation in the state of New Jersey too.
Are you kidding me?
So like, I think they tried to like. They would do these things and they'd be like, "You're on probation,"
well,
but I wasn't
convenient.
really on probation, and like, I don't know. So whatever. Anyway, long story short, I ended up going to play junior nationals and kind of like moving away for a little while and concentrating on that. And I tested out of all my classes, so I just got to graduate a year early, and everybody was like. They were like looking like at the graduates and stuff in my school that I went to school with my whole life. It's like, what the fuck?
Good for you.
How did he pull this shit off? Like Brian did? Like what the
Him?
fuck? Like him? That
Really?
asshole? What? But yeah, so yeah, I got to sneak out of there a year early. It's cool.
That's a good thing.
But I was definitely thinking about playing competitively even further. I had some scholarship things that I could have looked at.
Okay.
I just wasn't. What happened? Oh, I wasn't old enough to take the first set of scholarships that I was going to receive.
Okay.
I wasn't old enough because I graduated a year early, and there was a cutoff. I didn't make the cutoff. My dad at the time had a real estate and mortgage company, was like, I have an office in Greensboro. You can either go to school in Greensboro, you could stay and work with me and stay in New Jersey,
Okay.
whatever you want to do. And I was
Okay.
like, bing.
There you go.
I was gone. So got to Greensboro, started college, and I colleged. So once those scholarships rolled around, I just didn't really have any interest. I mean, I played club and did whatever, but I kind of realized I was smaller and I didn't want to put
the
on my
passion? Did the passion ebb away, or do you still have it?
Oh, I scored I scored the game-winning goal in overtime last night in my playoff game for adult leagues. So.
Oh, really? So you're still playing?
Yeah,
God
we have
bless you.
another playoff game tomorrow night.
Oh, right on. Right on.
I actually coached knock hockey, JV and varsity for 3 years, about in like 2008.
Okay.
Took them to their first playoff game ever. Won them states for JV. So did pretty good. I actually helped develop the PIHL, the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Hockey League's developmental league, which actually turned into the Little Penguins program.
Wow.
That was derived off the USA Hockey developmental program. That wasn't a big thing by any means, and we were kind of one of their what's the word I'm looking for? We were like one of their first structures, I guess,
Sure.
to implementing the developmental thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that super heavy. So I still love hockey. Obviously, I still play all the time. But
You're in a good town for it.
yeah, man. I'm gonna play on 3 teams coming up. I gotta.
So where are you finding all this time?
See, the games they're cool. Like last night was a playoff game. Was at 10:50 on a Sunday night.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Unless I'm on. The only thing, like I leave for tour on October 11th for like a month and a half. So I'm like, hey, I could play up till here, and they're like, oh, that's cool. You play for 7-8 games. It's like, yeah.
Otherwise they'll take you for as often as they can get you.
I'll do it. So
All right.
yeah,
So and you were in Greensboro,
North Carolina is where I started college.
And the
yeah.
college name was?
I went to Greensboro College.
Okay.
And then I transferred. I went to UNC for like a year.
Okay.
And
you were taking?
business. I was business administration.
Okay.
So I was doing that. I kept trying to get in this school called the Conservatory of Recording Arts in Arizona, and I did not get in ever. They didn't even call me back. Nothing.
Okay.
Not even like.
Okay.
hey, spend all your money with us. Here's a brochure. Nothing. They didn't even respond to me.
Interesting.
Which is really interesting. Terrible recruiting
recruiting
strategy.
Do you think?
But they'd only take like 16 or 20 people a year or something.
Okay,
so I mean, and at that point it was high demand.
Sure.
So I grew up in Mahwah, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
It's where Les Paul's from.
Yeah.
He lived diagonally across the street from me most of my life.
I read that.
So
The Les Paul.
The Les Paul.
There's one of them right there.
So
that's my favorite guitar, by the way.
I used to shovel his
That
driveway when I was little and
crazy.
stuff.
So he used to play at the Iridium in New York City. That was like a standing gig for him, I think.
Okay.
At the Iridium, late in life for him, his last 10 years, I think.
Okay. I don't even.
That's all right. Yeah. It was a little aside. That's all.
But yeah, I like broke down one day and I was like, I saw him I was on a plane like coming back from like Christmas or something or spring break or something, and I saw him in an ad for Crass, and I was like, what the fuck?
That's crazy.
And I broke down and I was finally like, can somebody ask this man if like, can I like get in there? And we weren't close or anything, like you know, it's neighbors or whatever, but he ended up giving me like a referral and I got in.
I'm sure that's all it probably took.
They called me like
I mean, that guy's the legend of, when it comes to electric guitar, Leo Fender and Les Paul, that it all kind of starts and stops with them. You know, at least as far as modern society understands it to be.
Yeah, and I mean, multi-track recorder. He's a legend. But
no question.
They called me instantaneously, and they're like, "You got 2 weeks till school starts. Figure it out." So I literally got out of UNC somehow. Got into Arizona State because I didn't want to lose my business degree that I was working super hard for.
Right.
So I went to 2 schools for
That's a full load, huh?
10 months. Yeah, I went 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. school every single day, Monday through Friday, internships and random stuff on the weekends. Wow. And that was a good 10 months. And then I had another 6 months or 8 months or so of Arizona State as well. That's
a full load.
It was cool. And then I had the intern hours. I was like the cool kid at school too, because I worked for Lucky Man Entertainment as an intern, which was like the big entertainment company in Phoenix and the surrounding area. So they threw all the shows. They held the calendars at all the cool venues. So all my classmates and stuff, they'd be like, "Oh, we need intern hours." I'd be like, "Yeah, come down." So they literally would come down, hand out flyers for like 10 minutes. 20 minutes at doors, then I get to come see a free show, and I'd give him like 10 hours. So, it was cool.
You were the man.
It was cool, and it was really easy dating wise, because I would
imagine.
Like, oh my gosh, I was such a weirdo. Oh, such a weirdo. Like I went to, I guess I'll just it's no secret or whatever.
Sure.
Of my pleasures or whatever. But anyway, there was a smoke shop that I would go to from time to time to get accessories for things.
For things.
But anyway, this chick worked there, and I liked her, and I was like, damn, how am I gonna approach this chick? And then she worked at a smoke shop, and this band Slightly Stupid, they're like, I loved them, but I was like, she probably likes Slightly Stupid. So I went in there one day and I was like, hey, I'm here to buy this thing, and I bought this like bong or something that I definitely didn't need and should not have spent any money on or anything, but I needed a reason to go in there.
Well, of
so
course.
I went in, I'm like, oh, what do you think of this, blah blah, and like talking or whatever, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna probably try this out, tomorrow after the Slightly Stupid concert. She was like, oh, Slightly Stupid, I love Slightly Stupid. And like meanwhile, like I heard it like the last time I was in there, she was playing it and stuff, so I was like,
well played.
Like, well, it just so happens that I work there. So
of course.
She's like, yeah, I'd love to come to the show. And I was like, yes.
Well, shame on you if you didn't take advantage of that. That's all I'm going to say. So you finished up in AZ, and I read somewhere that you were going to go get your master's. Is that right? Or am I jumping ahead too far?
Oh, no, it's not too far ahead. I went to California for a couple months. I did some Interscope stuff, interned.
Well, so were you, outside of the interns and working for us, were you still recording any of your own stuff?
No, somewhat. I was like into hip hop a lot. I was like doing some rap stuff. but not really. I was more doing live sound, doing engineer work.
Well, you must have been there at an interesting time at Interscope then, right?
I wasn't really. I was just an intern that did like post work.
Okay.
So I wasn't there doing anything important.
Okay.
So don't name drop, but don't read into it too much. It was just a bunch of bullshit.
Okay.
Work that I didn't really get even paid for most of the time.
All right.
So it was an interesting dynamic.
Well, it's Interscope, of course not.
Yeah. But I just was kind of homesick. I was really young. I had barely 21 because I graduated early and all that stuff. So I just wasn't ready to be that far away from home.
Got it.
I mean, not that I wasn't, but like I was just like, man, I'm broke. I'm living in this expensive ass place. I don't know anybody. It was a lot. So I was like, I heard he moved to Arizona and packed my car and drove here in 2 weeks. Like, when I got to Arizona, I didn't even have a place to stay.
Really?
I literally stayed in a hotel for a week and then found somebody else who didn't have a place to stay either, and we got a place together. So it was interesting. But I ended up going back to the East Coast, going to WVU to try to get my master's. I got a couple days into it, saw like the curriculums and all that stuff, and it was either I had to pay all this money and do this stuff that I really didn't really want to do, or kind of back out, and I backed out, and I took it kind of hard because I was like, wow, like, what are you gonna do? Like you don't really have any plan. You're in Morgantown, West Virginia. You're now not going to school. You don't have financial aid. Like, you don't have shit. So
right.
I just kind of started doing what I could do. I had like studio equipment, so I started a little studio, and then I got in with some guys called Sound Vision, with a guy named Eric Jordan, and they were working with like Bubba Sparks, and they had the radio there, and they did all the events there, and they kind of had like a bunch of hip hop stuff going as well. So I just did a bunch of stuff with them. I did live sound, and that's where I became a DJ. I just by chance I was doing live sound gigs, and a lot of the times the DJs wouldn't show up, or there would just be issues or whatever it would be, and that's how I fell into it. I had virtual DJ on my computer, and I was able to
there was one gig that actually ended up giving you your name.
Yeah. So Eric Jordan, I told him, I was like, hey man, I have this stuff on here. He's like, oh, it's an Afterthought, and then he introduced me as DJ Afterthought, and that was it.
That was it. How did the decision come to come back to Pittsburgh?
I was dating a girl.
Okay. It always ends like that,
yeah,
right?
She was from the Saxonburg area.
Okay.
That's how I ended up coaching knock.
Now I get it.
But just followed a girl really, and we broke up shortly after I got here.
Always happens that way too.
Met my wife, a little while after that. But
it's meant to happen.
Yeah, it was good. It's the best thing that ever happened to me, really. My career started here.
Okay, so you come back to Pittsburgh and you kind of set up shop, right?
I didn't do music when I moved to Pittsburgh, and I worked for a medical sterilization company, and
really, how long?
Coached hockey for 2 years before I did shit. And I was living by Butler, so that I wasn't too close to the city. I was broke. I didn't even have a car. I just was like, just doing whatever. I was working for this. It was a great company. It was with Medrad Bayer.
Oh yeah.
So, and we sterilized all their syringes,
familiar with them,
all that stuff. So I did that stuff, and it was great.
What years?
Like 2010 to.
I'm gonna drop a name here. Did you know a guy named Arun Data?
Arun Data.
His handle was Rune.
Mm-mm.
I think he worked for them, but maybe a different office up there somewhere.
Yeah,
in Kensington or something. I don't know. RIDC Park up. Was there another north, I guess?
Not that I. Oh no, of Medrad. See, I worked for Beam One, which was a sterilization company.
Fair enough.
That was contracted
for Medrad. That's where I got it confused.
Bayer.
Okay.
Yeah. But we're in Saxonburg, and they're connected. But I was just doing that, and I kind of just got the itch. I was like, man, like I really want to. And I was really into hip hop at that point as like a rapper, and was like doing that type of stuff. And I was like, man, I really want to get back into this. So I started kind of looking around. There was a couple guys from Butler that were kind of doing some stuff, and I kind of started doing little stuff with them. And then I got introduced to like the Shadow Lounge and to that whole scene. And Mac and Wiz had already kind of popped at that point, so I didn't really know them at that point. But I was just kind of like trying to get into stuff, trying to DJ. I would DJ so much stuff for free. Then we were like, screw it. Let's just do this. We know all these people in Butler. I started playing I started throwing hip hop shows at like the Brick House and just all over Butler, and we would bring hundreds of people in. So they're like,
something's
okay,
happening,
like,
right?
let's see what's going on.
Right.
I met this dude named Jordan Lyles. He's from Newcastle, one of my best friends in the whole world now. But he wanted to get into music. He kind of had some money to invest. We invested. We started throwing shows through a Bubba Sparks show, through a Yin Yang Twin show at the East Butler Fire Hall, sold them out. And that's kind of where it all started with the Pittsburgh scene, because then it started to trickle into Pittsburgh. So now I'm getting a little bit more notoriety. I'm getting a little bit more respect. People are letting me do stuff. I'm starting to talk to venue owners. I'm starting to get to throw my own events, because it was just kind of slim pickings.
Sure.
There's a lot of janky promoters, a lot of venues that were burnt out after the whole Mac Wiz era. Like, there was nobody else doing business right, so they didn't want to have the shows there. Venues were shutting down. It was just a lot of stuff going on. So I just kind of, kept at it. Ended up going on tour with French Montana. That gave me some clout, I guess. Ended up going on tour with Bubba Sparks. That gave me a little more clout, I guess. He's a great dude, but like,
sure,
it was a little past
sure
the prime of that situation at that time, but it was still a great experience for me.
Sure.
Gave me a little bit more notoriety. And I just kept at it, man. And then I got introduced to the guys at Daily Bread, which is a clothing company that's heavily influenced and Mac was heavily involved with.
Right.
That led me to meet the guys at ID Labs, Edan, Big Germ. Germ really, honestly, Germ was one of the people who kind of put me on, because he would talk so highly of me and introduce me to people. And then through Daily Bread, I got to go meet Mac and hang out with them and be around them. And then being at ID Labs, I ended up in turn meeting all the Taylor Gang guys and just being around them and working with them. And, the rest is kind of history. I just took all that and just kept moving, kept doing stuff all around the city. Did King of the Bergs, which is like a hip hop version of like Battle of the Bands, I guess. And we'd bring 400 or 500 people out, sell out the Rex. We did 15 of them. They've all sold out. And
you've done 15 of them at the Rex.
12 at the Rex.
Okay.
1 at the Erie Convention Center.
Okay.
1 at Hollywood Lanes. 2 at Hollywood Lanes. And yeah, that's it.
Huh.
But yeah, we sold them all out, every single one of them. So
that's impressive.
To do a local hip hop show that sold out like that, it was cool. So then we started promoting. A lot of the venues partnered with us to do hip hop shows.
Sure.
Did a lot of community stuff with Daily Bread, and just kind of been pushing ever since then. Got the Riff Raff stuff, started touring with Riff Raff, started managing him. That opened up a lot of opportunities.
Talk about that for a second. That's managing's a different element completely, right?
It's totally different.
Right.
I just fell into that. I have a business degree though, so it's just kind of
that's what I assumed.
People person, had pretty good relationships with people to begin with. It's just kind of easy for me. I don't know. It was just.
Do you enjoy it?
I did. I did.
Somewhere I think there's a story there.
Yeah, well,
that's okay.
Well,
that's all right.
No, it was great. It was. I learned a lot. I had a lot of great opportunities. It changed my life. It was. I can't take anything away from that experience.
Talk about Mac for a second. We won't talk deeply there. It's got to be hugely emotional for you, but he entered your life, and where were you when you found out?
I was just starting, man. He had already blown up,
right?
And I was really, I was close with his friends, more or less. Like Tree J, I managed Tree J. I managed Bill was one of the creators of Daily Bread, and I like managed them, and I was good friends with them, and I became friends with Q, and I was good friends with Germ, and I was at ID Labs a lot, and they'd see me and whatever. So the first time that I actually met him was at ID Labs. He was just there recording, and we just were hanging out or whatever, and I was with Tree J. And the next time I kind of met him was I went up to Canada with Daily Bread gear to bring him all the new Daily Bread gear. And he was on tour, and I went to Toronto, sold out show. We went there. He brought us upstairs to the green room, and we hung out with him all night. They invited us to Montreal the next day. We went to the Montreal show. And we just kind of hit it off from there. I got really close, became close friends with Chu Jackson, who was an artist that he signed. And I was DJing for him and really helping him out in that situation. So Mac liked that and invited us on tour. So I just kind of just fell into it all, honestly. But what a great dude, man. Like, he's just such a great dude. He, I don't know. He just looked out, man. He was just like, he didn't have to look out for anyone, and he went out of his way to look out for people. And if things weren't right and he knew about it, he would make sure that it was cool. And there's so many people in this industry who are just shitheads that just look out for themselves, and
I'd imagine
he was not that person, and it's just really hard to find. And yeah, man, owe a lot to that dude, owe a lot to that whole family in general. So ID Labs, Taylor Gang,
look what has come out of ID Labs.
A lot.
Yeah, you aren't kidding. There's no question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's tough. I literally, when I left, I was on tour with Riff in Australia, and our tour got cut short a little bit. And I came back, and the first place I went to as soon as I landed in LA was to Mac's house. And that was a month before he died. Right. So it was tough. To see someone in such good spirits in the situation that they were at that time, it was very motivating. It was very inspiring. It's like, wow, okay, cool. Like, you can go through some shit, and you can go through some shit publicly, and you can really look like you kind of hit rock bottom to everybody else, and bounce out of that and be just. It was inspiring, and
I bet.
Very non-inspiring at the same time. So
right. So, talk to me about some of the touring you've done in terms of countries and so forth. I read somewhere that you loved Norway. Was that correct?
Yeah, Norway's amazing.
Okay. Any particular reason why you dig Norway?
It's just a super beautiful country. It's just cool. It's just super cool, man. It's just flying in. You see like the craziest shit flying in. It's like these like mountains jutting out of the ocean, and like little islands all around, and it's just cool, man. It's
you like travel?
I love traveling. It's like a therapy for me. I don't like traveling because I don't like being away from my family. Right. I have a wife and a 3-year-old. It makes it a lot tougher. But aside from that, I love it. It's just touring's rough though, man. Like, people think that touring is
of course
a big party and it's so great, and it's all
that was the 70s and early 80s maybe.
I mean, yeah, if you want to, if you want to like go, you want to go there. Yeah, that was probably a lot better.
There's no question.
But I don't know, man. Touring, like I said, it's great. I never take it for granted, and I have a great time. But it's a lot of work, man, and it's a lot of stressful situations. Like, I tell people all the time, they're like, "How's tour, man? Is it fun?" And I'm like, "Yeah, for 45 minutes, an hour when I'm on stage." Outside of that,
it's a grind.
It's a grind. It's a grind, dude. Like, you're living out of a suitcase for months at a time. You can see people, and you have friends and family you see along the way, but like, there's also a lot of people that aren't really friends and aren't really, they just kind of. A lot of fake stuff.
And this is a tough word to use, but that guy over there, Fred Koalo, he's a good friend of mine. He's Pittsburgher, and Freddie's toured as a guitar technician for all the heavies, from Ozzy Osbourne, Zakk Wylde to just Stone Temple Pilots. No, I'm sorry, Alice in Chains and Megadeth. So he's seen it all. Right. 35 years, he's seen it all. Or 30 years. But his whole thing was, he has great stories.
I'm sure he does.
He's come on the show a couple times and he's some great stories.
I'm sure he does.
But I think you have to be wired to be that kind of person, whether you are the performer or whether you're the entourage around them, the working entourage. It's not the hanger-ons, the working entourage. You have to have some incredibly thick skin and willing to put up with the grind of how that works, right?
Man, it gets really shitty, man. It's just, it's a grind. Like you have to put up with a lot of different personalities that you might not mesh with, but you have to.
Did you fly or did you bus? Did you bus it?
All different stuff, man. Yeah, I mean, I've toured Australia, New Zealand 3 different times. Like you have to fly there, basically.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I've driven it too. I've driven all over Australia.
Right.
I've flown. I've bus, like European tours that I've been on. Both have been flying tours.
Sure.
I've done it all. Trains, planes, bus, whatever.
Yeah. So besides Norway, what other countries do you dig?
New Zealand's amazing. Australia's
Christchurch.
Yeah. Christchurch.
Yeah.
I've been to Christchurch, Queensland, and Queenstown.
Queenstown, I think. Yeah, Queenstown.
Auckland, Christchurch.
Uh-huh.
And we're supposed to go to Wellington, but I didn't. So those are the 3.
What about Australia?
Australia, I've been everywhere.
So you in Perth? Have you gone all the way
Perth,
out to
3 times.
to the west?
Been to Perth 3 times.
That's a big fucking continent, which is basically one big country.
It's fucking huge, man. It's fucking huge, dude. I try to tell people, they're like, the last time I went to Australia, it's February, 6 months ago or whatever it was.
Right.
And our last show of I was playing festivals, and it was one festival called Hidden, and then I played in Christchurch, Mardi Gras Festival, and a bunch of other little shows in between. But Hidden was like 5 shows, I believe. It was like Auckland,
wow,
Brisbane, Perth, Sydney, Adelaide, maybe, and then I think we had like Melbourne and some other stuff. But when we left to go home from Perth. It's a 5-hour flight from Perth to Sydney, 13.5-hour flight from Sydney to LA, and then 5-hour flight from LA to...
And that's providing everything goes as planned.
So yeah, and really interesting story with that. I ended up leaving a little bit earlier than I was supposed to in the night that I left, because I was like, man, like, if anything goes wrong, I'm gonna miss this connecting flights. I'm like, I'm just gonna buy this extra flight. but yeah, man, I've been everywhere in Australia. I've flown everywhere, and I've driven twice. I've made the Brisbane to Sydney drive down to like Byron Bay.
Down Melbourne.
Yeah, I've driven from Sydney to Melbourne as well. I've flown them all also, but
easier to fly it.
Adelaide, yeah, but dude, I wanted to see it, man.
I get it.
I wanted to see it. And Byron Bay, dude, we went to Banana Mountain. Byron Bay was...
you have been everywhere.
It was...
Talk to me about crowds. Every time I have an artist, it's fascinating to me, regardless of the genre, to see there's some differences and some there's not. You're the first guest on this show from your particular, and again, I hate the word, but genre. So they have a lot of rock and rollers and country. So their interpretation's a little different. Rock tends to be, the fans tend to be the same no matter where they go. Country's a little different because country doesn't sell as well outside of America. Right? It does, but not the same. Not the same. What is it with what you do? Is it EDM? Is it basically the same? Once you get them bouncing, doesn't matter where you're at?
It's the same, man. It's all the same. I think some of the outside of the country stuff can get a little bit crazier in its own way, just because
Give me an example.
Like some of the European stuff, Australia, like it's a different feeling because you're in a different place that you're not used to, right? So like, if their energy is great, it feels even better, but it might not be as much or the same as when you're in the U.S.
The vibe, you mean?
You just have to kind of like, you have to take into consideration that like when you're touring Europe, a lot of those countries aren't nearly as big, obviously. So like,
there's multiple countries of festivals, probably, right?
Yeah, and then like just playing venues in other countries, just like a 500, 600 person venue, like they don't get to see as much either, US wise. So like that 500 or 600 person venue might have the energy of 1,000 person US venue.
They appreciate it more, maybe.
They appreciate it, but then also sometimes you go places and they don't necessarily know how to act or like what they're supposed to do. Or
where do you find that out? Have you been to Japan yet?
I haven't been to Asia.
Okay.
It's one place I haven't been yet. I'm supposed to be going soon.
Rock artists often tell me that the audiences there are more reserved.
Yes. I've heard that too. And a lot of European audiences are a bit more reserved too, because they're just not as open, I guess. They're just not as, I don't want to say anything like negative or even like, because it's not negative at all. It's just a different feeling. Like they're not as like it's just more genuine. Like they enjoy the music. They're not just there to be on their phones. You know what I mean? Like
similar comments.
They're there to enjoy the music. They're there to enjoy the experience, and it's not all about they're there to be cool or they're there to be for social media or like this and that. So it gives you a different feeling. Like they're just appreciative of you being there, and it's like, holy shit, man. Like, thank you. Like, thank you for appreciating me to be here. I've been,
well, that's cool that you can get that vibe.
Yeah.
And you recognize it, you know?
Yeah, it's a feeling, man. You can feel it.
Yeah.
It's a feeling.
I had a blues friend of mine who, pretty good blues player. I'm going to leave him anonymous now. But he's from Texas, and he said it's amazing. He goes, my career goes like this. When I'm in my lows, I go to France, I go to Spain, I go to Italy, and the halls are smaller, but the people love it. They're so appreciative.
How old is this blues artist from Texas?
He's probably in his 60s. We can talk off camera about that. but he really he may be close to 70 now. But he's in a band and also does solo work. I'll leave it at that. He says that when his career, there's ebb and flows of everything. If you've been doing this for 40 years,
you're gonna have ups and downs, man.
Right?
And you're gonna want to take time off too. People don't understand that.
That's what they do. Yeah, and he goes, I get rusty when I take time off. I'm bored walking. I'm careening from wall to wall at home because I'm bored.
Yeah.
So once you get the adulation, he admitted it. You know, why are these old rockers still doing it? The money's good, but the adulation that they're so used to getting, that's not for everybody, but for a lot of them, they need to have that.
Yeah.
But his point was when he went overseas, he would book it all through France. France just loved this guy. The point was they were very much into the music. Even now, he goes, they're not up with their phones, and you know the phones don't come out as much over there as they do here. Do you find that too?
Yeah, I mean, they're just they're there for the experience. They're appreciative. They want to be there. They want to live the moment.
What is your favorite European country to play? Well, no, just to visit as well.
Norway.
It's still Norway.
Something
must have really special happened up there.
It's just nothing really. It was just a sick place. It was just so cool. It was just I liked it. I don't know. It's just cool. Everybody was super nice, and it was just breathtakingly beautiful. Like it was just beautiful.
If you played all through the Baltic states as well, or is
I've played Norway, Sweden, all of them.
Wow.
All of Scandinavia, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway, all of them. We flew from, where were they from? Oslo. No, yeah.
Oslo.
Either Oslo. No, we left from Bergen. Our last European show on this one tour was from Bergen, Norway.
Okay.
We left Bergen. So you got to think, this is the summertime. It was like June. So we leave Bergen. We leave the club or venue that we were playing at about 1 a.m. and I walk outside and it's completely light out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, this is weird. Our flight's at 7 a.m. We go back to the hotel. Can't sleep. It's fucking daytime out. I'm like, what is
how do they do it, man?
So I'm like, oh, this is rough. So get up, start this 37-hour journey to New Zealand. So we fly from Bergen to Amsterdam, Amsterdam to Abu Dhabi, Abu Dhabi to Sydney, Sydney to Christchurch.
Wow.
It was
when intense. I read somewhere you don't really dig flying that much.
Not at all. It's like my biggest fear of life.
Really? That's it?
That's
So you have to get a couple of beers in and take the edge off or something, right?
A couple crowns.
There you go. That'll do it faster.
A couple crowns, and
that'll definitely do it faster.
I'm really not into, like, obviously, like I said earlier, I smoke weed. I drink occasionally.
Right.
But outside of that, I'm not a big fan of anything.
Yeah.
I'll take these like beta blockers that are like non-narcotic Xanax, and I like to think they do something, but they probably don't.
Oh, it's a placebo effect in your head, right?
But that and a couple crowns are usually what goes
get you where you need to go.
They'll get me there.
No Orient yet for you. Is that on the horizon? Is that a goal for you?
Yeah, I've had an opportunity to go a couple times. It just
how is EDM music in popularity wise over there?
It's pretty big.
Is it?
Yeah.
So there's a market there for you.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah.
It's pretty big. It's pretty big.
In the guitar realm, there's a lot of shredders, guys that made their mark, as being just just virtuosic playing, right? Just amazing stuff. And those guys, they obviously are probably at a low right now in popularity in the States. The guitar music's not as popular as it used to be. But over there, they're like booming gods, man. Yeah. They're like, they treat these guys like gods. Paul Gilbert, and Marty Friedman, and it's crazy.
I hear that a lot. I work with a lot of agents. I do a lot of like tour routing as well. So I work with tons of agents.
Okay.
And I hear the same thing, like rock stuff. The metal stuff here, they'll bring 100 people, 200 people. They go there, they'll bring 1,000, 2,000.
Yeah, it's metal, and it's I don't want to ever say a genre is dead because I don't like to pigeonhole the genres, but that traditional metal stuff, I think Zakk Wylde is probably like the king of metal guitar players today.
Yeah.
He's still relevant and all that stuff, but he'll come to he's only playing like the Rex and places like that. He can't, it's a shame. It's not, I guess it's not a shame, but it shows you the flavors of society that they change, right?
Things are changing. But I also see, like we were talking about, like, shout out Gary Clark Jr.
Yeah, yeah.
Good friend of mine and amazing human being.
Right.
Even more amazing guitar player.
Right.
But it's crazy. Like, you don't hear him on the radio, but he's playing every festival in the world. He's playing sold out tours, amphitheaters, like wherever, and he's just killing it. And so I think that people really gravitate to real music. I just think that the mainstream today kind of force feeds you a lot of stuff too, and it seems popular and it becomes popular because it's just kind of in your face, but at the same time like, there's a lot of music that people listen to and there's a lot of musicians that are doing really well that aren't on the radio, and
absolutely right. Yeah,
that's even better.
I think that's good. Yeah, in some regard, in terrestrial radio has got to be on its last legs. I've heard a lot of friends in radio, so I say that sadly. I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to come. Listen, no, Ryan. I would not want you to have to come in here and me say, listen, what's off topic, what's on topic, and do me a favor. There's we have to watch the swearing and we have to watch any expression that you have. We have to censor ourselves. I don't want that. I love the format and the freedom that comes with doing a web-based show.
Yeah, and you just feel so much more comfortable. Like, I've done a ton of radio stuff, and
you find yourself having to be careful.
You just like think about stuff more than answer how you would answer.
Right.
You have to not change yourself. I don't want to go that deep into it, but like you're definitely thinking about it, and you're kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not such a free-flowing conversation.
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, you also got to think too. Like, I think it's dying as well, but at the same time, like, you got to think about how many tens of millions of people are sitting at work every day, and that's all they can listen to, or they're in the car and they don't have XM, or they want to pay for it, or like.
There's an audience there still.
There's still an audience.
I think it's slowly ebbing away, though.
Yeah, but I think that what dictates popularity a lot of the time is radio. So, I mean.
Still,
yeah. I mean, it's
what about
you being force fed? You're listening to the same song 10 times an hour.
Would you agree that it probably is a lot less of an influence on?
It's a lot less than it was.
Okay,
but just because of the way the landscape is with the DSPs and all that stuff. But and the accessibility of music is just so much greater than it used to be. So you're not getting force fed just by the radio, but at the same time, it's still there.
Free. Satellite has not killed though terrestrial radio yet.
No, I don't think satellite radio will. I think that DSPs, Spotify, Apple Music, those are the things that are eventually going to take over. But I mean, even YouTube, like, I mean, I just see so many people that I know that are just like, they're even like on the aux and they're playing stuff off of YouTube, and I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so you're obviously you're not that young. I mean, I'm saying to you, you've seen a good 15 years of this technology develop, right?
Yeah.
So,
at least,
yeah, right. So my I guess my overall point is you have seen the proliferation of social media. You remember the before.
There wasn't. I mean, I remember when there was no internet.
Right. Okay. So it's a different. Every artist that comes in here,
or at least no internet that I knew of. Like,
yeah,
I looked it up like not too long ago, and it was like there was internet in 1987 or something. And I was like, what was
that guy's name? Linus someone who, but I don't know.
Whatever. But it wasn't maybe some like rich corporation somewhere had the internet to balance data or something.
I think so, and I think the universities had connectivity back then too.
Yeah, but even so, like.
Yeah, but 95, 96, it started to become mainstream.
Yeah, it's school, home, dial up, yeah, all that stuff.
Absolutely. But the video streaming thing, obviously, the crispness of the compression and the whole thing got figured out around the mid 2000s, late 2000s. But unfortunately, the carriers didn't bring in broadband for a while for it to be functional. But YouTube has changed the landscape, and then Facebook differently has changed the landscape as well.
Right.
As an artist, and you're up doing your thing, how much do you see the cameras up like this, as opposed to just people enjoying themselves?
I notice it a lot, man. It's. I mean, and recently I haven't been on social media as much because I recognize it, and I'm like, I don't want this to be like a fabric of me because it's
interesting.
But at the same time, it is. Like, I'm living this time and I live in it. So, as much as I don't want it to be, it's kind of like.
Do you force yourself to keep relevant with it?
Sometimes, yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I'm definitely not gonna say that I don't.
Right.
And I try my best not to, but I definitely do. I mean, I want to have a career and I want to be relevant as well, just as much as anybody else, and not in any egotistical way or not in any narcissistic way. But
it's
like
a vehicle, right? And you have to pay attention to it.
And it's a necessary evil in my industry, in my career path. Like, I got to do what I got to do. Nobody's gonna find me amongst the millions of people that are out there doing it if I don't.
Right.
So, as much as I don't want to necessarily, it's kind of like.
Do you? You obviously have a lovely wife and a beautiful child now, and you're starting that family life. Do you ever worry about the intrusiveness of? The reason I ask that is I've got a lot of artists, guitar players generally, or frontmen of local bands that were popular. Then the wave of ebb and flow, but they all talk about quite frankly, my last couple guests here, Poverty Neck Hillbillies. Now they have a band called the Hillbilly Way because they split. And Poverty Neck was huge in like the East Coast here back in 2002 through 2010, 9 maybe. The point was that was prior to Facebook. So they built that thing prior to Facebook.
Right.
And now the Hillbilly Way, they're trying to get, and they're having some success, but it's been harder. And they were talking about when they first were on Facebook and their posts were getting like 30,000 views per post, and now Facebook is throttling, with everybody, and now they're getting like 3,000, and and we're not all data scientists, and we don't really profess to understand all this stuff,
right?
But there's obviously I guess my point is it's a constant challenge for artists to stay relevant. Would you not agree?
100%. I mean. And your consumer, your demographic, especially with the hip hop and EDM, is lower, is a lower age, where that's what they know, so
they grew up with it.
I mean, right? I mean, it's just they don't know anything different. It's challenging.
How do you feel about all the cameras out when you perform?
I like it because obviously they're pushing me. They're pushing my brand. They're projecting me to their circles, to their groups of people. So in that aspect, I love it, but I also wish that people would just connect more and not have to think that they need that.
That's a reoccurring theme.
It's just, I don't know. It's something that I've adapted to 100% and that I participate in, but at the same time, like I said, I recently just kind of taken a step back. I don't post as much on Instagram. My Facebook is literally just like family and friends, more or less, and I'll post like family pictures and just random stuff.
You guys have a very strong, big following, and you don't feel the need to maybe, do you feel you're compelled that you got to continue to do that, or?
I mean, yes and no. I just I feel like that if you're like a fan of me, and no matter my social media following or not, like if you're a fan of me and you like me, then you should kind of be cool with that. Like you should know that that's me. Like if I make a decision or if I'm not as posting as much, or I don't, it's me expanding and me growing. And I explain that to people all the time. I put on my social media like, hey, sorry I haven't been posting as much. I'm really just trying to work on. I'm out living. Like I've learned to live again.
I get it.
I'm out trying to live my life. I'm trying to enjoy my family. I'm trying to, and not even be that it's intrusive. I try to keep my family off of social media because I don't want that to be an intrusive side, and I don't think it's fair to have to put. Some people think it's like weird. They're like, oh, why don't you do more, like post more publicly about your family? It's like, because man, there's so many weirdos and just like weird shit.
It's a mixed bag.
And I don't want them, like maybe my son or my wife don't want to be in my social media posts. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to force that on anybody, and I don't want to like this is like you're coming there for me, right? So like as much as they're a part of me, I want to keep that separate. But yeah, man, I just feel like if you want to be a fan of me, you should know me, and social media is not my life.
I see both sides of that. I see a lot of celebrities, and you are a celebrity here. There are a lot of celebrities that are varying degrees, very varying regional areas. Some use their family. That's a horrible thing to say. Some
people exploit their families 100%.
Yeah, they do. They use their family. They're okay with doing. A lot of athletes do it, quite frankly.
I'm not into that. Okay. You won't ever see me on an E show.
Understood. So, but I also think that there's a safety issue. Are you familiar at all with Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Joe Rogan podcast was the inspiration for what we're doing in a very small way. This is what it is, right?
I love Joe Rogan.
So do I. I admire the guy a lot for not only his innovation, but how he has refined his conversational skill. He's so good.
I've actually had conversations with him, not.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
On his podcast.
That's cool. Very good
partaking in recreational activities.
Mushrooms, right? DMT, whatever it is. None of my business. No, but
more of the herbal variety.
Fair enough. But that's one of my goals is to be in the same room with Joe, and that'll happen at some point, I'm sure. But the point why I brought Joe up was he's very careful about shielding his wife and his children on social media. Yep. You'll see little snippets every once in a while where and very controlled. Yep. But I admire him for that because he's one of the most famous people on the planet based on the success of that podcast.
Right.
So there's an example where he still can grow his entity, his brand, so to speak, and be amazing and still protect his family. So if anyone says you can't do it, there's a prime example right there of a guy who's doing it.
100%. That's me. Like I'm the exact same way. Like I don't.
You enjoy being a dad?
I love being a dad. It's great. What's
the best part of it?
Just like it's like a little person that's just like it's my little dude. I mean, I get to just be there and be everything for somebody, and it's like it's the best feeling in the world. It's like I love my son. Like I want everything for him. I want to do everything I can for him. I just like it's an unconditional love, and people talk about it a lot, but like it's a real thing, man. Like and a lot of the times I tell my friends who are having kids, they'll be like, man, you know, all these people are saying your life's changed and everything changes. And I'm like, yeah, you want the real, at least for me, from my experience, having a kid does change your life. But in the very beginning, it changes your life in different ways. It doesn't change your life where you're completely infatuated with something that you've never felt a feeling for, right? Mm-hmm. It's a change of you're not sleeping. You're super stressed. The first, I tell my friends all the time, I'm like, dude, the first 6 months my son was born, I loved him. I unconditionally loved him, and I wanted to be there, and there was nothing that you could do. And you know, don't get me wrong,
what the fuck did I get myself into?
Yes, 100%. But at the same time, it's like it is. I mean, it is. But it's also, I mean,
that's so
90% of it is holy shit. I need to keep this thing alive. And that's as real as you can be. And it's not insensitive, but you can't bond with something that you can't, that doesn't even have a personality yet, you know? And it's, so you're in dad mode, you're in, like,
you're
it's your instinct. You're a protector. You're like, okay, I need to protect this thing, and I need it. Like, oh my god, it's scary as shit, right?
But you relax over time. You realize that you can do those things,
and then you also realize too that your child becomes a person.
Certainly.
And they grow personality, and they grow attached to you, and it's a feeling, it's a bond that forms. It's amazing, and there's nothing that can change that. So for like I said, for the first 6 months for me, it was just like, shit, keep this thing alive, and fuck, man, like, don't fuck up. You know? Like, and then like people are like, oh my god, like, are you talking about your child like that? And
that's
it's like,
so
fuck
real,
yeah,
though. That's
man. Like,
so
what
real.
do you want me to say? I was
Absolutely.
fucking terrified. Like, it is what it is, and now it's my little, it's like I shaped his life. He's a part of me. He's a part of my wife.
And you'll keep doing that.
And you know, I love him.
It gets better, buddy. I'll well up when I tell you this. I got a 16-year-old and I got a 19-year-old very soon, and they were my little buddies. I mean, I grew my, you know, whether it was the guitar business, whether it was whatever it was, they were at my side.
Yeah.
I was a very divorced dad, a single dad early on in their life. And man, you know, to watch all of that, and you'll be there someday.
I'm already there.
You'll step back and you go, wow.
Once I had myself, like for once, I don't know if this happened for you, but
sure,
I don't even care. You call me a pussy, whatever. But like, me and my wife watch movies now, and we'll fucking ball, dude.
Sure.
Like, my whole just emotional like stratosphere is just completely different,
and
like,
that's beautiful.
I'm just like, yeah, dude, it's so crazy.
But it's beautiful. That's beautiful.
it's just,
you know what? And I think, though, ironically, I think that all kind of ties in with your love of music, because music is such an emotional thing. It's a reflection of the kind of person you are, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think so, at least.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a feeling, man. Like, you really feel things a lot deeper, because you're like, man, it's not just me anymore. Now I have to worry about this fucking
the gravity
human that, you know, like this is my responsibility. This is a creation.
Every decision has more weight now.
Yeah,
which is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. It's very motivating, and it makes me work even harder. It's the only tough thing is just like traveling, man. Like, when he was younger, he didn't know any better. He didn't even barely knew I was there or not. You know, like, this is what it is. Now it's, can you come home now? You know, and it's fuck, man. I'll be like, oh my god, buddy, I'll be there soon, and then shut the phone off, and I'll just cry.
Yeah.
So I mean, FaceTime is definitely heavily used by us.
It wasn't around 20 years ago.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm just grateful it is now, but that definitely helps. And
sure,
I fly them out as much as I can as well.
God bless you.
But he's starting now. Like, he's 3.5. Before this, like,
right.
Traveling with a fucking 2-year-old is terrible.
Oh, there's no question. And he'll be in school pretty soon too.
And my wife would show up like haggard, like, "Fuck you." I'm gonna. Like,
you can't blame
I'll see you in a few hours, bro.
Yeah, he's yours now.
Like,
you take him
right
right
travel
now.
across the country, bro. Here, this is you can deal with this for a little while, but No, like
great memories though. All those trips. I mean, the tapestry of your life would be amazing, right?
I hope so. That's the goal, and I hope that I can bring him more life experience and just give him a little bit more than I had. I had a pretty stable childhood, I guess, if you can say. I definitely had a lot of turmoil as well, and had a lot of stuff that I had to overcome that might not seem as bad and as as dreary and gloomy as some other people's upbringings. Sure. But I definitely had my share of pain and my share of stuff that I had to go through. So I just want to better that and just kind of, you're a dad, like, is what it is, man. I just want to try to do the best I can and not fuck up. And that's you want to give him a little bit of generational experience, but not be the old dad, give him
man.
Shut up, dad. No, but like, I'm the same way. I just want to be able to you know what it is? I want to be able to communicate with my son. Like of his whole life, I just want to be able to communicate with him. I want him to feel like I just want him to be happy. I just want him to feel like he knows that he's loved. Right. He knows that his parents will do anything for him. He knows right from wrong. He knows that he could look up to us. That's what I want. Aside from that, I don't give a fuck, man.
That sounds good, like good parenting to me, pal.
Well, call it. It's insanity. What it is really what it is.
Yeah, but, well, that's because the little tyke is still young. Trust me.
Yeah, man. I just want him to be proud of his dad, and I want him to look back and be like, that guy gave me the best that he could.
Right on.
And might not always be perfect, but I'm trying.
This has been amazing. This has been really amazing. I appreciate your candor and your frankness, and
man, I appreciate you having me. I just
no, this is great, dude. We're honored to have you.
Stuff too frankly, and
I
try to kind of, I don't know. I don't like to be politically correct, but I don't know. I just a lot of people, I can't open up to fake people. And a lot of people that I run into in this industry are
I'll take that as a backhanded compliment.
100%. No, take it as a front-handed compliment. I
appreciate that very much. I
like people who are genuine and that talk about things and aren't just asking me about stupid shit that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm not much into the soundbite, and as I told you when you got here, I'm not a journalist. I'm just I guess I'm a show host, but this is just a conversation. I think it's funny that what you just echoed, I've had the same kind of thing echoed to me, which is very flattering. It means a lot to me that my guests are comfortable in here.
Yeah, this is great, man.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So before we wrap this up, you're going on tour soon, right?
I am. I'm actually going on tour as the sound tech and production tech for Earth Gang, which is a Dreamville artist. J. Cole, Jid, all those guys. I actually met them on the first Mac Miller tour that I did, and they were an opener and friends with everybody as well. And we hit it off, and great guys. They're DJ Dark Knight, know him really well. We just Mac brought so many people together, and I've just known those guys for so
Legacy
long now.
Continues,
and they just invited me to come work with them, man. And as much as I have my career stuff with my artistry and all that stuff going, it feels right. It feels like it just feels right. It feels like the right time to do it, and they're phenomenal artists, and they're gonna be doing really big things. They're about to drop an album guaranteed to be #1. I know it. So they're going to be huge, bigger than life, guys. But at the same time, I met them well before that, and they've always been great guys. And then for them to turn around and give me an opportunity after all of that, all those years and all their own success and stuff like that, and to bring me on in that capacity, I'm grateful for that. So I'm going to take some time and do that, and I'm working on all my stuff. And
so any tentative release dates for any of that material?
So I have some EDM stuff coming out in October, November time frame. We're just waiting for dates from the labels for that. And then the final day stuff, man, honestly, I'm just trying to perfect it all, and then I'm gonna go and just sit with as many people as possible and just see what kind of offers I can get, what kind of opportunities I can make of it. I don't want to waste it. Like, I've wasted a lot of music throughout my life. I've wasted a lot of time making a bunch of dumb music that I didn't necessarily even want to make. I mean, I'll admit it. And this is something that's really special and really important to me.
Okay.
I want to do it right. So,
but it's coming soon, though.
It's coming soon. It's coming very soon.
Very soon.
Within the next 6 months. But
very soon.
I'm just gonna take the right path.
Okay.
And make sure I do it correct.
All right. So. And it's DJAfterthought.com. There's so many ways to reach you.
Everything is.
It's unbelievable. If you can't find this, I say this a lot on the show, but if you can't find this guy on the web, you are absolutely not looking at all.
Yeah, Google's a crazy thing.
Google is your friend when it comes to this too.
But yeah, DJ Afterthought everywhere. At DJ Afterthought is literally my @ on Facebook,
right.
YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, all of it. And then everything coming up for the side project is Final Day. It's just all at Final Day.
Final Day.
At Final Day.
That's simple enough.
But yeah, all the rest of the stuff's at DJ. The big following is all at DJ Afterthought. DJAfterthought.com, CatalystCollectiveMusic.com.
All right. You come back and see me again?
For sure.
Yeah, give it a couple months. Get some more stories under your belt, things that are going on. Keep us abreast of what's up.
The next time we come, we have to talk about the stories.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do that. This was our intro show. Yeah, well, you know what? We're going to hold them to this.
Get me into some trouble next time.
That's totally up to you.
I'll take it.
All right. Friends, thank you so much for tuning in as usual. DJ Afterthought, episode 1. We're going to get him back again. God bless. That's it.